My name is Sudi Matara. I'm the General Manager for KTDA Foundation, which is the arm of KTDA Holdings that basically looks at social impact, climate change, as well as sustainable business. KTDA Foundation was founded back in 2010 as an arm that was looking at what then we used to call corporate social responsibility, which has now since transformed into what we see as corporate social investments, which is a different way of looking at things, because, CSR is more event-based, it's short-term, and basically, it looks at philanthropy as a line. And the scholarship program was the first inaugural program that we had, which sponsored then about 68 students for their secondary education. The reason why the secondary education was picked is where we realized with the president, the late Kibaki coming in on board, opening the space for primary, it meant that there was a gap in transition rate to secondary schools. And that is why that was one of the key focus areas of the foundation. And then a little bit of environmental sustainability, looking at tree planting, especially within the public forests, also within the farmers' farms, but also looking at institutions of higher learning. Another area that we looked at was on health. The reason being health is a very important program within our tea ecosystem. When the farmers are not healthy, it means they're not productive. Hence the reason as to why the organization picked health as a key component, because a number of our farmers, most of them are above 55 years old. And this is the cohort that is predisposed to what we call non-communicable diseases such as cancer, hypertension, diabetes, arthritis. And it's important that we tackle these issues. So that's why we introduced medical camps for screening and also, for early diagnosis. But since then, this program has also evolved, to look at issues around nutrition, which is a very important component when you are talking about the productivity, because then when we are talking about good diets, we are talking about, better management of some of the diseases, and it's also a prevention mechanism. We've supported a bit on infrastructure in terms of supporting a number of primary health care level, and supported, worked with the county governments to ensure that, there's a physical facility, but as well as equip, and also in terms of personnel, ensure that, the government then provides the personnel that are needed. So we've worked very closely with governments to do that. But most importantly, we also looked at, that time we were looking at financial literacy as an important component on building the capacity of the farmers so that they can address pain points in terms of their businesses, the tea business and other businesses that they're involved in. And we train quite a number of farmers, but that program again, has evolved into a holistic and economic empowerment program that looks at things from a holistic point of view. So the foundation has grown from just being that arm that was placed under the corporate affairs. Now it's grown into an entity of its own. If we look back, in 2010 to about 2016 there, the main donor for the organization was KTDA Holdings. But now, we are getting funding from external partners that include, development banks. We are getting funding from, government institutions, especially abroad, and also working with foundations and buyers to fund some of the critical areas that have been identified as key to addressing the pain points of our farmers. We had a program around financial literacy, as I mentioned before, which now transformed into what we call a holistic economic and social empowerment programs, where we look at three key areas. First is social dynamics, because we want our farmers to understand where they're coming from, in terms of diversity, gender, the youth. And, we find a special place for those people. We have conflict within family, we have conflict within the community, and we look at those issues that are very critical if you have to advance any behavior change in terms of, adoption of even new innovations and the new value chains that we have. So for us, then, that training then becomes very important. And we've trained above, about 300,000 farmers who have gone through the financial literacy program together on holistic economic empowerment. And we've seen such impact because then the farmers, on number one, they're able to address the challenges in terms of, how they manage their business. Okay, because they have understood where they're coming from. Then we go to financial literacy. Now here is where we look at, basic finance principles, in terms of record keeping. We look at, management of their cash flows, management of loans. Should they even borrow in the first place? But if they borrow, then they must make sure that then, they utilize the resources that they have in an optimal manner. So that's very critical to us, because then we do not want this issue. And our farmers are suffering from that in terms of, being in a vicious cycle of debt. Because, using the KTDA payslip, because farmers every month they get a payslip and they get an income from KTDA on a monthly basis, then what they do is that now they go into, other institutions and get, credit. And for us, we want them to borrow responsibly and ensure that, they're not putting their families or they're not putting themselves into vulnerable situations. We've seen farmers go into dairy farming. From the study that we did sometimes back, we realized one drawback on dairy farming is that it's a loss-making value chain. And, one of the greatest impediment and one of the cost of production was, the feed. So for us, we are thinking, and that's one of the innovations that we want to see whether it's something that our farmers can adopt in terms of like black soldier fly. We want for them to look at cricket farming as a substitute to the protein that is found in the animal feed, so that then, the feeds become cheaper. We've seen farmers go into beekeeping. We've supported quite a number of farmer field schools across our tea catchment areas, and a number of them, I think right now we are supporting about 500 farmers across who are now into beekeeping. Some of them have gone into packaging, and they're even selling those the honey to the supermarkets as well. We've seen also farmers go into other ventures that are not directly, in the agribusiness space. Some have gone, like the young men, they have a water business where we've put a car wash for those groups that are delivering water to schools and hotels in different places. And then, using that, then they're able to take care of the water catchment areas. And we've seen, farmers diversify into various value chains that complements the tea income. So for us, that's a very critical area. And our dream really is that by the end of 2030, we could have closed the living income gap for our farmers by 50%. How do we even pick on the farmers that we have? And as I mentioned, almost 500,000 farmers, according to the UN, live below, the living income benchmark that has been put across. And and tea is doing well in terms of the stable income our farmers get, but the margins are low. And that living income then means that we have to look at other ways. The organization has different ways where we are cutting costs, we are doubling our revenue, but also now diversification becomes in handy to try and narrow that gap. And the gap takes a bit of time. But again, we will, as much as possible, work with the value chains that the farmers are already in. But also, we are talking to the market. We are looking at the market requirements, the technical requirements of the market, and then now feeding that information into the kind of programs that we come up with. Because, if you do a value chain, if you get involved in a value chain and there's no market for it, then I think, that is why, the reason as to why we are saying farming is not working. And, that's why you will see youth running away from agriculture, because they're saying it's not working for them. So that's why, for us as a principle, we've decided we want to make agriculture work for our youth, for our women, and for our men. Tea farming, such like another value chain that is agri-based, is a rain-fed system. And, our productivity is directly proportional to how well rain is distributed over, the year. And when we have drought, then it means, it affects our productivity, right from, KTD as an institution all the way to the farmer level. We are continuously thinking about, how do we reduce the carbon footprint of KTDA? And we have quite a number of initiatives at that level, in that, we are a carbon neutral in terms of the number of trees that we cut and the number of trees that we plant. We ensure that for every tree cut, we're able to plant more than 2. We have our own woodlots across the factories that are owned by the factory companies, and we're able to, to get that wood fuel from the farms. But we're in the process of, looking at the renewable sources of energy so that we still continue, reducing our carbon footprint. That's why, KTDA saw it fit to introduce, another subsidiary that basically would address quite a number of challenges. Reliable green energy that we produce from our hydros. It's reliable because we used to have frequent blackouts, so which means again you spend a lot of diesel, which is a major source of carbon emissions. We also, as a result, because also I've said, we depend on rain. Therefore, we've planted over 20, for the last 5 years, we've planted over 20 million trees. Or rather, we have grown over 20 million trees together with the factories in their woodlots. We have also, looked at the public institutions and public forests, and in schools, we have been able to plant trees so that, they act as a catchment for rainfall. So for us, those are some of the things that we've been able to do so that then we're able to deal with issues around climate change. In terms of now, championing some of the things that we do and some of the work that we are doing, and that's why, we got even awards here that show that, we are working towards addressing key pain points and challenges brought about by climate change. We're able, at the farm level, as I said before, it's, those climate smart agriculture practices that, are done at that level. At the institutional level, whether it's at the factory or at KTDA level, I talked about, the energy efficiency programs that we've introduced at that level. That shows that, we want to bring down our carbon footprint. And at KTDA power company, you will see that now we are producing electricity, and 17 of our factories are on our own grid, which means we've brought down the cost of production, but also we've reduced the amount of carbon that we emit. If you look at the kind of partnerships that we have, sometimes, they're limited in scope. Here we are talking about 700,000 households, tea households. That translates to a minimum of 3.5 million people. So the resources to even reach out to this big number is not possible. So that's why sometimes, we go into segments, we go into prioritization because of this big population. It would have been our dream really to get resources so that then we can be able to reach out to all these farmers. But the priority goes to farmers, especially the 72% I've talked about who own half an acre and below. Very, 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 very critical. And that's why, we try and protect this economic jewel, because tea brings about 200 billion Kenyan shillings into the economy of this country, and 60% of that, is brought by KTDA. 23% of the total forex, comes from tea, yeah, and 26% of the total export for this country is tea. And as I mentioned, KTDA contributes a big part of that because we are a major player when it comes to the tea industry. So therefore, we drive the economy of this country. We contribute a lot to the economic development of this country. That's why you've seen the rural areas grow. And therefore, we appeal to, to different partners to come and support us so that then we can be able to reach to these many million vulnerable communities across the tea catchment areas. We are in about 19 tea growing counties in this country. So whatever that we are able to do, because we are limited by the resources, we're limited by scope, because some of the buyers, for example, they would heavily invest in where they are buying their tea from. And, that makes sense in terms of, you invest where you are getting the teas from. We are trying to look at, partnerships that do not give us limitations in terms of scope and geographical coverage. And we've been able to do this, working with different partners such as IDH, Sustainable Business, who have given us resources to work across the country in all the factories. We've worked with the World Bank, IFC, and we've been able to run programs across. And other programs that we've been able to do before with IDH, covering all the factories and covering all the counties that we have. We will be able to measure our success in the adoption of new innovations and technologies that address, poverty, innovations, the number of innovations that we come up that will reduce our carbon footprint. We will be able to look at, the number of products, social protection products that are developed by our financial institutions, Greenland Feather and Majani Insurance Brokers that protect the farmer and become, part of the insurance so that, the farmers are not, affected by some of the calamities and probably, some of the diseases that may push them into poverty. I am appealing to our farmers to work with KTDA, quality, is a major strategy that KTDA has employed for many years, and that's why, we are able to sell our teas across the globe. I appeal to our government to continue supporting us in terms of the policies, in terms of the laws that affect the tea industry, so that those laws can continue bringing transformation into this sector. The investments that could come from government, could come from our other partners, we appeal for the support, especially, as we move into the next 5 years of this farmer first, leave no farmer behind transformation strategy. We request you partner with us. You work with us in different areas, whether you are a social impact investor, whether you are a commercial partner, and come work with us. We look at different opportunities in the tea sector, and we realize that there is space for every player to enhance, to develop, and also to support, so that then we move to the next level.